Kia ora.
And we're live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another narrative promoting local pop culture and themed, people and writers and art and stuff like that. So welcome to the narrative. Beautiful Whangarei here today. Awesome day. It's Monday. It's Queen's birthday weekend, I think. No, it's Labour weekend. Sorry. Yeah. And that's also the Queen's birthday weekend will be changed to King's birthday weekend, I'm sure, soon. So with me today, I have Mike Botur, a good friend of mine, and he's a really well-known writer locally, but he's also becoming well-known overseas as well due to his book being published by an American publisher. He's an independent writer. He's been doing that for ages for himself, and it's just good to see, especially to see Michael just get up there. What we're really going to talk about today is about this event he's got going on. So, Michael, do you want to just talk about that for a bit? Yeah. Got mine.
So, thanks, Ara. Yeah, cool, man. So the event is called Scary Stories, Scary Pictures. These are the scary stories. This is The Devil Took Her, Tales of Horror. So it's a collection of 12 great horror stories. And the Scary Pictures part of the event, which is this Saturday, by the way, the Scary Pictures side of things is two artists, Shane Evans and Ashley Ellis. They draw a big banner, a big cool mural. And on the mural, they take inspiration from the stories. So they draw what they're listening to, what's coming through their ears, and they also take inspiration from suggestions from the audience. So anyone can get up and say, hey, I want you to add the new Hellraiser pinhead woman. And they can add that. So this is what the event looks like. Although your brochure, your flyer would be a lot less crumpled. This one looks like I ran over it with the car.
Awesome. So what I like about this is that I'm going to be able to sit down and listen to it. You yourself as an author, reading your story, as well as two other artists actually there drawing it. Bits and pieces. I've seen some of the artwork, was really cool. It's fun to see what people come up with when they listen to characters and stuff. And myself being a visual person, I always think, is what other people are seeing is exactly what I'm seeing in my head. And that's a really cool thing about what you do as a writer. How do you come up with the idea to formulate the creatures and stuff, and to try to, especially what I've been thinking about really lately and for quite a while is there's so much writers out there and so much stories and stuff. And how do you write something that's unique and that's special that people go, yes, this is something original? Because we saw Smile lately, and I thought that was really original in the concept that it was, and it made me really, enjoy it.
So my first 6 books were collections of literary fiction. Okay, there's a couple of novels thrown in there. But yeah, I used to write short stories in what they call the literary fiction genre, which is realistic stories. And basically, there's no story without conflict. So you got to create realistic, believable characters and believable settings with very original language, because no one will care about your work if your vocabulary, if your selection of prose isn't original. So you take really original characters and you just put them through a conflict, and then you tell a story about them. So that's how I made my bones, so to speak. So I learned how to write stories that were good enough to win a few awards, a few prizes, and to get published in most of New Zealand's literary journals. But I hit a wall that there's nowhere to go with it. There's no market for literary fiction short stories in New Zealand. So what I've been telling people is I decided, horror. I can see people are letting their freak flag fly with horror. People are being more open and honest about how much they love horror. There's less and less shame in the year 2022 about loving horror. We have a streaming service that's dedicated to horror. Books of Blood. So Clive Barker's Books of Blood was a really great example of putting some serious hard work and making short stories, making horror short stories high quality. So what I've done is I've taken my 6 books of the good quality short story writing that's undeniably good, that, you know, critics are saying is good quality, and that I won a bunch of awards for. And then I've been adding a drop of food coloring, like a drop of horror food coloring, and that just flavors the story. And I mean, all these stories could pass for literary fiction. It's really great quality writing, great characters, and great structure and setup for each story. And a good quality story comes first, and then I've been thinking, I mentioned the word conflict before, so there's no story without conflict. So in the past, I used to have like husbands and wives clashing, or an employee clashing with a boss, or a parent clashing with her daughter, or something like that, or one stranger clashing with another at a train station, getting into conflicts. And now often my characters are getting into conflicts with, as screenwriter Gregory King would put it, horror pressure. He's been sort of teaching me a few things that I didn't know. Gregory King is the dramaturg who helped write the portrait of Bunny King. The Bunny King movie, The Justice of Bunny King. And he taught me that horror is pressure. And if you think about it, all horror movies are just a character under pressure from a being or a force. So my drop of food coloring is the pressure. Sorry, I'm rambling here, but so what I'm doing is I'm writing really good quality, literary worthy short stories. I'm just adding a little bit of horror, a little bit of believable horror to really stress out my characters and put some hard conflicts in front of them.
So you're written like sci-fi as well. So what was this move to horror? Is it because you like horror, or is it something that you think it's more maybe sellable or more enjoyable by people? Because I know, like one of your one of the artists there, Shane Evans, said is like New Zealand's independent horror sells better overseas than any other genre in the independent circuit because we're able to create something totally different. So with that in mind, do you think not only is horror more sellable as a Kiwi entity or literature overseas, or is it because the market is there? Like, it's basically the same thing, isn't it? It's like, is the market bigger for New Zealand horror than it is for any other genre?
It's possible. There's a place for it. I mean, New Zealand's biggest successes have not been horror, have they?
Sure.
Lord of the Rings, The Power of the Dog.
But you can't really call that like a New Zealand. I mean, it is a New Zealand production, but it's not a New Zealand story. It's an it's an English story.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So in mine, I'm thinking about like actual New Zealand writers telling New Zealand stories, and that being a success. So the last one I was thinking about was that metal, the heavy metal one, right? So that was a huge success overseas for the budget it was made at. So I'm thinking, like, is there a possibility with that in mind that even you could think of joining up with someone locally and creating short films based on your writing?
Thank you. Yes, that's exactly what I'm trying. Yeah, and you raise a really good point, Aru, because that's half the reason I got into film. I started being more observant about the path towards getting films made if you're a Kiwi, and I realized, hang on. The scrum is very difficult, but you have a chance of getting the ball out and running around the opposition if you're doing horror, because there are these examples of horrors doing well. And hey, notice it's funny when you're talking about whether or not New Zealand horror can do well overseas. We're not talking about books whatsoever, because there are no New Zealand horror books that have done well until now.
Right.
Until now. With just a few horrors. So I don't know why that is, but we're far overdue for some good quality Kiwi horror writing to get out there.
Yeah, I mean, as myself, like being in film and degree and all that rubbish, I find it easier to write scripts than it is to write a novel. I find it easier to sit down and go, scene one, this happens, set it all up, than like yourself, who's like understands the concept of how a story works, in literature as a novel, because the filmmaking script and a book do not have the same sort of concepts of, because people are trying to make up ideas in their head, whereas in the script, you're already telling them exactly what is going to happen in that page. And then the filmmaker comes in and goes, this is what the writer wants, and this is what we're going to make. And so I think with you, doing this, I think it's quite cool. Have you actually reached out to local filmmakers or national filmmakers and say, hey, look, here's a script, or are you writing a script and saying, here, I've got this script, would you be interested in working with me to make it happen?
Yeah, that's well underway. And I'm absolutely happy to be starting at the bottom. So I felt like I was kind of, I could see the end of this career in writing literary fiction. And it's like, there's never going to be a point where Kiwis are reading New Zealand literary fiction short stories that much. It's always only going to be 1% of the population at best. Whereas I reckon 1 in 5 people loves horror, just to pull a number out of the air. That's definitely well underway. So this story, The Strange Paper, I just went ahead and wrote a feature film script because I took a screenwriting short course last year to, as I say, to start at the bottom and to just and I had no idea about the screen world basically. So I'm still learning. I'm just above the bottom. Just a couple of rungs up a ladder that's 100 rungs. But the cool thing about this book is I've been sending it to film people, screenwriters and producers and directors, and I've been saying, hey, man, this is a terrific book. I can genuinely say this is a really good book and that there's a very high chance that you'll like it. And they have been giving it a chance. I'm so blessed and so lucky that the cover entices them enough to open it up and read it. And some people have... I can name 2 people in particular who have, are sort of well along their careers with film, and they direct and produce and write, and they've read the entire thing, which is just amazing. Whereas, that's, you don't get that in the literary fiction genre. People read a fraction of your book and then they lie about whether they like it or whether they even finish it, because nobody gives a shit with literary fiction. It's so dry and boring. Whereas with horror, screen people can see films and these things. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, we can imagine it. I mean, like my background basically starts with Stephen King and Clive Barker. Clive Barker was the one that got me really into horror. It was my first horror book I read. And imagine reading that huge book as a kid, 15-year-old kid, and then realizing that, in your own, because I was actually in my own little shed where I used to live in by myself and reading it and then, falling asleep. The horror elements of that scared the crap out of me. And so I think the process, and you're right, I think the process of writing and making a film based around a horror book is easier because there is this tension that is there that I don't think it's more pleasing than just a boring old drama, rom-com kind of thing. It just becomes so tedious watching the 100, rom-com without, it's just like cookie cutter thing. And so having something cool come out of Northland, come out of New Zealand as a horror book, it's really interesting. And that's the first thing I was kind of thinking, how does this book relate on screen? And so I'm glad that you're looking, sending it out there and getting people interested in it. Have you, with the short stories, are you working with anybody local to look at it? Have you just, I know you've done a feature film script based on it, but did you write a little, based on a short story, like a 12-page thing?
No one local. Strangely enough, I have accidentally become friends with a couple of Tauranga filmmakers, Tauranga, Bay of Plenty. And I like their energy, and I like how they make movies that aren't yet making money and that aren't yet being widely watched. And I like starting near the bottom with them, and I'll gladly jump in the ground floor elevator with them as it goes up. And I'll gladly write 19 scripts, none of which go anywhere if the 20th one goes somewhere. Yeah. So that's how it works. Film was really oversupplied, and that's fine.
Yeah, but the horror genre in New Zealand isn't, and that's the cool thing about it. Everybody's chasing everything else but horror. And I like the idea that we can, we can have horror as one of the cool things. Now, one of the things that's really cool, you mentioned Pinhead at the start there. Having watched Pinhead and then having watched the original Pinhead, Hellraiser way back in the 80s, right? I think it was about 87 when it came out. And then having read the books that's based on and watched all the movies, I think I missed that on one. And then seeing it again and actually enjoying it enough after, 2 decades or 3 decades. How, did you watch the original, and how do you compare the original to this one?
I liked the costumes in this one. I liked the conflict that the main character was in. She was a relatable character, and possibly the last few films they haven't had compelling enough lead characters. And it's a cool mythology. It's cool to see it being given more love. And it's funny that the concept of the gritty reboot or the serious reboot it really turns people's heads, and it's so nice to live in an era when that's happening. Hey, much respect for Books of Blood, much respect for the Hellbound Heart. And here's something funny, Aru. I have to phone off in a second. Just shortly. I think I've only read 2 or 3 of the Books of Blood collections, and I think there may be 5. But I've taken the shortcut, and I've years ago I just went and read all the Wikipedia articles about all the stories in the Books of Blood, so you get a nice 300-word synopsis of the whole thing, which is. Hey, can't be blamed for that. We don't all have time to read everything in the world. And I've got firm memories of what I did read and what I read on Wikipedia. So lots of Clive Barker's stuff was realistic. It made you think, plausibly this stuff could be out there in the world, and it chills people a little bit because it's he treats it seriously. Yeah.
And he's an artist as well, which is really cool. So he's able to, especially with actually designing the characters to be like what he thinks in his head onto what we see on the film and in his artwork. So thank you. I hope all the best. So tell us again when it is this event that you've got going on.
Whangarei, Quarry Arts Centre, 6:30 p.m. this Saturday, October 29th. Now, what happens is while Northland Youth Theatre are doing Fright Night, I'll be in the Yvonne Russ Gallery with artists Shane and Ashley, and I'll be reading 2 long, deep short stories, each of which will take 45 minutes. I'll be reading 2 of those, and the idea is you in the audience, you just pay a koha to get in, suggested koha of $10, and you just kick back and you just relax. Because, hey, when's the last time an orator put that much effort into telling you a whole story? It's very much like a play where you come into the play and you sit and you just shut up and you just kick back and you just listen to the important words on the stage for almost an hour. Yeah, so 2 halves of that. And, the books for sale and, artwork for sale from the artists.
So you'll have to bring cash to buy a book?
Yeah, cash.
And how much is the book price?
The book is $25, which I make no profit on. But don't get me started. That's fine. I just love spreading this thing. I love reading these stories.
The weird thing is that you can spend an entire year writing this, and you realize it's in a book, and it's only $25 in the end. And it's like the artistic value. What is it? You spend your whole year, and the only way we can make it work for the artists is to buy the book and sell as many as possible. Now, the other thing, I just had a thought. Oh gosh, are you accepting? Is it like via bank deposit, or is it for the book purchases, or is it cash on the day?
Bank deposit is all good, and I've got some forms with bank account number written on them. Yes, very 21st century.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike. We'll see you on Saturday. I'm looking forward to it. I missed out on the first one, but I'm really, really looking forward to this one.
Yeah,
don't want to miss out on it.
I'm going to read different stories this time too.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Catch you, catch you, bud. Catch you, everyone else. Ka kite anō. We'll see you next time whenever we're doing this. Bye.